Hello, everyone. Welcome to the latest episode of the Nordic Football Podcast. I am Steve Wiss, and I'm joined by Jonathan Fordugba. Unfortunately, there wasn't an episode last week. We were both ill, but back fighting fit now. Well, I certainly am. I hope you are as well, Jonathan. It's good to have you on board, my friend. Loads to discuss over the last couple of weeks. We're going to start off in Sweden, but Jonathan, hope you are fit and well again.
Hi Steve, hi everybody. Yep, I'm back. I thought it was quite a curious case of double illness. I don't know how it happened, but it did happen. And so both of us were a bit under the weather last week. Different reasons why, I don't exactly know, but we're back now. We're good. And it's been a good week actually in Sweden and Norway. Of course, we've got the European games as well to preview this week. The Champions League and the Europa League qualifiers are back. So we do have a little bit to talk about, don't we, Steve?
Yeah, I have to say, it was a very strange round in Allsvenskan and Eliteserien. A terrible round for favourites. There were some very strange results going around. Some very unexplained results at times, I must say. So there's plenty to discuss there. We're going to start in the Allsvenskan. I'm just going to go through the top five in the table now. Häcken on 25 points, Djurgården 24, AIK on 24, Hammarby 21, Malmö on 21 points. Down at the bottom, Helsingborg on 6 points, Degerfors 7, GIF Sundsvall on 9. Now, we have got to start in Stockholm derby, Djurgården against Hammarby, a win for DIF. And this in itself is a rarity, isn't it? I mean, how often do they win a Stockholm derby? I know they actually did beat Hammarby last season, in fairness, but it's very rare they would even keep a clean sheet in a derby game against Hammarby as well. So you could say this result was in many ways a surprise. But I was looking at the stats and did watch a bit of the game. It seemed deserved to me. But what did you make of this Stockholm derby, Jonathan?
Really good game. Good advert for Swedish football, I thought, on and off the pitch in terms of like the atmosphere before the game. I saw it got tweeted across all the kind of, the kind of ultras websites and the kind of TIFO Twitter accounts that do the rounds of like fans, TIFOs and celebrating and stuff like that. Before the match, there was like a little march, I think, from the Djurgården fans to the stadium through the streets of Stockholm, and that kind of went viral. Then, of course, in the stadium, you always get the usual kind of cacophony of sounds and noises and flares and sort of the banners and things like that. So yeah, it was a typical kind of Stockholm derby. As you've mentioned, they were the table. Both teams knew that if they could get a win, they'd head into the top three, put themselves in touching distance of top. So of course, and then the game being played on Sunday, they already knew that of course AIK had already lost. No spoilers, but if you haven't heard that result, of course AIK lost and Malmö had lost. So it was an extra bit of incentive for both teams to kind of go in and climb up the table. I thought the game, I actually had quite a lot of observations about this game, so I am quite interested to sort of dissect the game a little bit and chat about it, the two different styles. I did say on the Patreon show, didn't I, Steve, that I made a prediction on it, which wasn't right in the end, to be fair, but I think it could have been right. I said over 2.5 goals. And to be honest, I think that the nature of the game, it could have easily been over 2.5 goals. Hammarby hit the crossbar. I think Djurgården hit the post. There was a lot of good chances, just missed. Neither team was as effective from set pieces as they used to be. I mean, pre-match, Martí Fuentes and even I think the Djurgården squad, someone from the squad commented about how good Hammarby have been this season from set pieces. I think they've scored roughly, I think I read 11 goals from set pieces. I'm not entirely sure if that's true, but a really high number of goals from set pieces. So they weren't as effective from those set plays this time around. But ultimately, of course, they did manage to get the win. It was a 1-0 victory. Kind of a scrappy game. I mean, in the end, in terms of like the score line, 1-0, you would have maybe expected more goals, as I said. But it was Gustav Wickheim off the bench and an assist from Emmanuel Banda, who also came off the bench. Just after Hammarby had made a few changes actually to their team. And yeah, it was, of course, the atmosphere for these Stockholm derbies is intense. I definitely recommend any listener, if you could ever get to a Stockholm derby, then definitely take the ticket. Well worth it because of the atmosphere, what it means to both sets of fans. And in the end, of course, Djurgården got that victory. It's not a good time for Hammarby. They've had a bit of a poor run in terms of their recent results. But all in all, yeah, for Djurgården, it's a massive result, and it sort of keeps them really in the title race, to be honest. For Hammarby, this is now their third game without a win. So, they're from that sort of early start of the season where they won 5 straight, they've really started to wobble a little bit. I think they've won 1 game in 7. And the wheels are just starting to wobble a little bit for Hammarby.
Gustav Vikheim, ex-Stroms Godset, I remember him there over the years, scored the only goal of the game. The crowd went absolutely bonkers, didn't they? The noise was huge when this goal went in the back of the net. But I looked at the expected goals for this game, Jonathan, and it was 3.04 for Diff and 1.36 for Hammarby. That's according to Wyscout. So anyone who was on the overs for this game was very, very unlucky. So your tip was very, very unlucky there. But I mean, when I caught the second half of this, and Hammarby, I mean, that crossbar's still rattling, isn't it? The amount of times they hit it in the last 20 minutes there weren't necessarily easy chances, but there were some great efforts on goal. I'm not sure who was the guy who missed so many chances for Djurgården. Obviously, they were below their XG. I'd imagine Edvard Hassan was probably guilty of missing chances. Asoro, neither of them seemed clinical enough. But a 1-0 win for them. I mean, tactically, you said you wanted to talk about tactics of this game. What was the setup? How did both teams sort of play each other off? It was quite a fascinating tactical battle.
Yeah, it was a good game because it asked a lot from both coaches. I said in the weekend preview show on Patreon, patreon.com/Nordic Football Podcast. If you want to obviously join that, we've got quite a few. I think we had a new patron last week. So if you're listening to this free show, then thank you so much for subscribing. And everyone else who subscribed, we really appreciate your support for the Patreon and hope you're getting good value from it. But yeah, I mentioned on the Patreon show about how both managers are kind of quite good form. Both of them are sort of attacking quite well. Not form in terms of like I said, Hammarby's form has dipped off a bit, but in terms of the way they score goals, they're entertaining attacking sides. Hammarby, 2 of their last 3 games before this, they'd scored 2 and 3 goals. They beat Norrköping 3-0, and then they come from 2-0 down against Häcken. Obviously, the title, the league leaders, come from 2-0 down and got a 2-2 draw in the last 10 minutes. So Hammarby, they have got that attacking ability, and Djurgården, they absolutely battered GIF Sundsvall in the week before, scored 5 goals against them. So I was really intrigued to see how both teams would approach the game from an attacking point of view, and I expected it to be open. The main question mark before the game was, of course, for Hammarby, they had an injury and a suspension in defence. Mads Fenger, I think, was missing, and it basically meant that they had to play Dennis Widgren, formerly of Östersunds. He had to play as a left-sided centre-back. Now, he's more of a left-back, to be honest, but he played as a left-sided centre-back. Now, I think that Djurgården, my criticism in the first half was or my question in the first half was, could Djurgården maybe played Joel Asoro against Widgren? Because Widgren doesn't have the most amount of pace. They had a 4-3-3. Asoro was on the right-hand side of that 4-3-3, and Asoro is very fast. And in the game against GIF Sundsvall, the 5-2, he was really got in that outside channel, sort of between the half spaces between the sort of left-sided centre-back and the left-back. He really did a good job getting in those spaces and making really positive runs and getting in behind. Findell especially was playing sort of through balls to him, and he was latching onto them. And I wondered whether I was surprised that with Widgren there, surprised that Djurgården didn't try that more often, sort of that similar ball. There was one moment in the first half where they tried it and had some success, and Asoro got a shot off, went out for a corner. It was a good save in the end, but it wasn't the best of shots. It was sort of like a high shot straight at the keeper. But that to me was like a little glimpse of things to maybe come. But what Djurgården actually did, they swapped the joint managers of, as you know, Lagerlof and the other joint manager. They swapped Asoro to the left-hand side, which I found strange. I think it was because of Edvin Kurtulus, the right-sided centre-back of Hammarby, who's had a really good season, by the way, been very good from set pieces. He got a yellow card in the game. And I think they switched Asoro to maybe challenge him on the left side. But I actually think that was a bit of I queried that and I wasn't sure about that. Hammarby had 61% possession in the first half. But the thing is, they struggled to create clear-cut chances with that possession. Only Bubakar Chouali on the left-hand side of their 4-3-3 was really effective. I thought Dennis Collander on the right-hand side and Gustav Ludvigsson, Steve, I thought they were both quite poor. They were very ineffective. And I think that was the difference between the two teams in the end. I think the substitutes for Djurgården, the attacking impetus that Banda and Wickheim brought, I think that just edged the game in the end. Excuse me. I think, when you look at Ludvigsson was really quiet. And I did tweet during the match that I think this was a game that Hammarby really missed Swedberg. And even Michael Lado, maybe his pace. I thought both of them were kind of missed, especially Swedberg, because Ludvigsson didn't really offer much at all. And from Djurgården's perspective, of course, Edvardsson, you mentioned him there. He loves to talk. He's done so many interviews. I think he's done more interviews than goals scored. But he was quite ineffective. And obviously, when he went off, Wickheim came on and scored almost straight away. So that was a sign. But Edvardsson didn't play. His all-round game wasn't poor, but he wasn't effective. But the difference was between the two teams that Djurgården had those options from the bench that could come on and change the game. I think with Hammarby, one or two players like Bersara have just sort of dipped. Their form has dipped recently. And I think that was the difference between the two sides in the end. Second half, once the goal was scored, sometimes, and I'd like to get your opinion on this, Steve, if you've got any evidence or research about 5 substitutes. Because my theory is that 5 substitutes kills the flow of the game. And I don't know if it's just anecdotally or maybe my own bias, but I feel as if I see a lot of games in the second half just kind of petering out when you want it to like explode. But the 5 subs I feel that more often than not, it kills the rhythm of the match. There was also a lot of substitutes in this game, Steve, in terms of there were stoppages. Both keepers, I think, had injury problems. There was 11 minutes of stoppage time. We actually played 100 minutes in this game, more than 100 minutes. So that also killed the flow of the match in the second half after the goal. And I think that was partly also why we didn't see sort of maybe over 2.5 goals. But that's my kind of top-down analysis of the game. But I don't know if you've got any evidence, from the betting world about 5 substitutes and how it impacts matches.
To be honest, for a minute there, I was thinking that Kim Bergstrand is like the man who must not be named. But and Ludvigsson, by the way, I totally agree. I think I had him in last year in my fantasy team a few weeks, and he was very frustrating as a fantasy owner. He's just not quite elite in the fizzy. I think it's a good way of describing him. But you make a good point. To be honest, I've not really noticed that too much. I know you are big, not a fan of the 5 substitutes rule, and I probably agree with you. But I've got kind of so used to it now that I don't really notice too much. Really, to be honest with you, Jonathan, I think there's positives and negatives for both types of team, good and bad. I don't really think in, say, Allsvenskan and Eliteserien it should really make that much difference in theory. But there was a lot of stop-start in this game. I remember watching it, and there was it went to 101st minute or something, didn't it? There was a lot of time wasting, as you would expect in a derby match. But there's no doubt that the right sort of timing of substitutions can impact the game now. That's for sure. And I think it's a big win for Diff. I don't trust their defence. I think on another day, Hammarby definitely could have scored goals here. Yet it has kept 5 clean sheets this season, which is a respectable amount. But they always look vulnerable to me whenever I watch Djurgården. They do have an offense which creates a lot of chances. I guess the question from here is, and I to be honest, had kind of written them off after I think they lost to Helsingborg, drew to Helsingborg around early May. But are they actually in this title race? Are they good enough to win the Allsvenskan title this season?
Yeah, I mean, before I answer that, on your point about the defense of Diff, I think one of the other keys I didn't mention of the game was I thought Bubakar Chouali in the first half was really getting at Piotr Johansson, the right back of Diff. And I thought if Hammarby were going to score, it was going to be Chouali. There was one cleared off the line, in fact, by Ekdal. Chouali had created some good movement down that left side, created a shot. Ekdal cleared it off the line, and then I can't remember who it was, but it was a bit slow to react. I think it was Edvardsson possibly, but there was a chance to sort of poach in on the rebound and just in the 6-yard box, but it was cleared. Chouali was good in that first half, and I thought if anything was going to happen for Hammarby, it would be from him. The new signing, they've waited for him from injury for so long to get back, and he's back now, scored obviously, and was lively. But to be honest, my man of the match in this game in the end was Piotr Johansson. I think the way he dealt with Chouali in the second half 1v1. He had 1 or 2 1v1s in the early second half where he shut him down and almost demoralized him, to be honest. And I thought that I was thinking that he would, Charlie would win this battle. And, sometimes you see a right back sort of getting dominated and you worry for them, you know what I mean? Especially Charlie's physicality. But to be fair to Johansson, he stood him up in the second half a couple of times early on, won the tackle. And from there, he was really solid. And to be honest, I think overall, he was probably my man of the match on the balance of play. But yeah, I mean, it's a great result for Diff. It puts them in the title race, definitely. I think that, you also talked about kind of the stoppage time. There was some comments after the match. Basara, I think Magnus Eriksson had said, and obviously Magnus Eriksson, he loves these derbies. He's always first one in the crowd, when Diff win. He's the one who's rallying the fans and sort of geeing everyone up. He said after the game that he felt like Hammarby were wasting time on purpose. And Nahir Basara sort of commented and said, it's not as if we're playing Real Madrid. So he disagreed with that. He said, we feel like we're evenly matched with Djurgården, and of course we would never try and, just grab a point. We're there to win. So, take your pick on that, who you believe. Obviously, then Eriksson came back and said, well, they're not exactly Barcelona either themselves. So there was a little bit of back and forth, as there always is with these Stockholm derbies. But yeah, I think Djurgården are in the title race. I think, we're going to talk about a few of the other teams now coming up. But I think what we've learned this week, Steve, there's no clear favourite. We did talk about that on the preview show as well a little bit. There's no clear favourite for this title. There's only 5 points between 7th and 1st at the moment. There's games in hand everywhere. There's European games to come for Malmö, of course. I don't know, and for other teams as well in the Conference League, I don't know really who you would call at this moment in time to win it. And I think that with 1 point between Djurgården and Häcken, I think Djurgården are definitely in it. I think the defence is okay. The key is just keeping on to their players. I don't see anyone who's urgently going to leave. Isaac Keane is maybe linked with a few clubs and 1 or 2 others at that diff, but I think they can probably keep maybe some of their players. But as it stands, they're definitely in it. I think Hammarby is the one that would be disappointed with this run of games. I think if they'd have maybe picked 3 or 4 more points up, obviously they'd be top. And I feel like they've kind of wasted a few opportunities in the last few weeks. They've lost Swedberg. They've lost Michael Lardo. The form of some of their top players have dipped. Gies, who we did a special Patreon scouting report on, he's not going to Celtic, but he's been linked with other clubs in Bulgaria and elsewhere. If he leaves again, that's a key loss. So I think this week was worse for Hammarby. Obviously, it's quite an obvious thing to say, but I definitely think Djurgården are in the title race.
Yeah, I worry for Hammarby now, to be honest. 1 win in 7 games. They've lost players. They look, dare I say, they look out of it now as well. It's not often a title-winning side goes a stretch of 1 win in 7 games, is it? So, but there's some strange stuff going on in the Allsvenskan at the moment. It feels like the door is open for a lot of teams because sides are dropping points left, right, and centre. Malmö dropped points against GIF as well. We'll talk about that in a minute. I know you really want to have a strong opinion on AIK, who have lost 1-0 at home to Mjällby, and that follows on from only a 1-1 draw against Degerfors. Simply not good enough. Again, if you really want to win titles, you've got to win matches like that, haven't you? AIK against Mjällby, then 1-0 win. I mean, we've kind of seen this before. I mean, was it Mjällby went to Malmö last year and won 1-0 in very similar sort of circumstances? They are the sort of side we said before that they're an absolute bastard to face, aren't they? This defence that is just compact, and then they hit you on the counter attack, and before you know it, you lose a game of football. And they're very well coached outfit, like you've said many times before. But AIK should be beating a tie like Mjällby at home, shouldn't they?
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is AIK 0, Mjällby 1. Not sure really where to go with that in terms of how it went. All the top teams will have dropped points this weekend. Malmö dropped points, AIK dropped points, Hammarby have dropped points, Häcken dropped points. So it's a great weekend for Djurgården, to be honest. Also a great weekend, you could argue, for IFK Göteborg. If you put them in the bracket, and Kalmar even dropped points. So it's I'd say IFK Göteborg are probably they're only 5 points off the title now. I'm not saying they're going to win it, but that tells you how the fine margins are at this moment in time at the top of the league. Every other team really had a bit of a nightmare. So I think the biggest nightmare probably you could argue was AIK. Booed off at the full time. They've lost to Mjällby side, who had been in not the best of form. They'd started the season so well, but I'd kind of dipped. They hadn't won since the 1st of May, obviously against Helsingborg at home. So, they've gone 5 games actually without a win, and then they've gone to Stockholm and beaten AIK. I mentioned it on the weekend preview show, Steve, Silas and Wankwo. I said on the show I would tip AIK to win this game, but I have a feeling a Silas and Wankwo goal will sort of cost them at some point. And that was why I said I couldn't comfortably sort of tell you to sort of tip AIK. And lo and behold, a Silas and Wankwo goal did win them the game even. I didn't think they'd maybe win it, but, in that sense of them nicking a goal, it went exactly as I thought. AIK lacked goals. They lack that impetus. They've lost Jordan Larson, so maybe there's mitigating circumstances. They're waiting for John Guidetti to arrive and obviously be fit and play. So there was a hole there up front, inevitably. But Hui has also had injury problems. But I really felt that they were awful, to be honest, Steve, in terms of their attacking impetus. Slow, laboured. The tempo of the Djurgården Hammarby game was quite high, and you could kind of understand that. The tempo of this game was low. Mjällby sat in a deep block and just said, listen, give us what you got. Any long balls over the top, they dealt with it. I thought Krisak, for example, I thought Carlos Grassi was fantastic. There was one late tackle in the last minute of the game from Haliti. Block, I think it was unbelievable to stop a goal, basically. Throwing the bodies on the line, Mjällby. Whereas AIK, the thing to mention here, Steve, there's a lot of criticism from AIK fans after this game for the players. If you look at the actual lineup of the team, a lot of people said this is maybe one of the weakest AIK teams they've seen for quite some time, especially in forward areas. If you look at the actual team, Steve, you had Zach Elbouzedi, who, I said in pre-season he's the sort of Swedish Grealish, if that makes sense. He's played for Bolton Wanderers, he's played for Lincoln City. I always felt it was a bit of a weird move when he went there. I didn't really quite get the scouting behind him. And I have to say, this was probably the game where I've been sort of 50-50. At times, he's looked really good last season. And then at times, it looks like he can't, you could give him a month of Sundays and he won't beat his man on the outside, on the wing. And this was a time where the game just went past him. He couldn't get into it and he was subbed off. You look at kind of other players in the team, Benjamin Kimpionka, who started up front, Steve. The last time I saw him, and I'm not joking, it was in non-league. He was playing for Torquay United and looked poor. And, sometimes it just tells you about the luck of players sometimes in a way, because he's kind of managed to go from non-league football. He had a loan at Southend. He had a loan at Torquay, 10 games, no goals. And next thing you know, he's in Allsvenskan. He was awful. I'd almost go as far as to say that will we see him again in an AIK shirt in terms of as a leading striker? Not sure, because he was that bad. Obviously, he came from Sunderland, but Sunderland sort of let him go on a free, I believe. And that basically summed it up. Those two up front were nothing short of terrible, really. Stefanelli is hit and miss. So with AIK, they're defensively all right, but ultimately, they've got a decent back line in terms of defenders you can rely on. They get goals from set pieces. Norfeld's a solid keeper on his day. But that forward line, fair enough to sort of Amar Ahmed, who you can't criticise him. He's new to the squad. Last week, he scored a brilliant goal against, I can't remember who it was, but I think it was against Degerfors.
Degerfors, yeah.
But, he's only 18 years old, really, so you can't expect him to do much. But Kimpioka and Elbouzedi have been the boo boys for AIK after this game, and I think they've got a lot of criticism for it, and certainly Elbouzedi, I think there's a lot of question marks about him now. Who scouted him? Who bought him? Why has he been signed from Lincoln City or wherever it was? And is he of sort of level that AIK want for their team?
I tweeted something from my own account on the weekend about strange results going on in Allsvenskan and Eliteserien, and I got someone reply to me called Alberto. I don't know who he is or anything, but he follows me, and he replied to me about AIK because I mentioned their result, and he said AIK basically didn't have their two best players on the pitch. Mjällby were good in defence, and they just waited for an error from AIK. So I went and responded to him and said, who are their best two players then? And I knew Jordan Larson would be one of them, but I was interested to see who would come back and say the other player was. And he said their best forward is Bahoui. Now, I just looked at he's missed the last 3 games, Bowie. Now, I've got to be honest, Nabil Bahoui, I've never really noticed him when I watch AIK. I don't watch that. Can't kind of claim to watch that many games for AIK, but he's someone who never really catches my attention. But it seems he is very important. Has he been a big miss for them, would you say?
Well, I would probably agree with your man because of the fact that he gets goals, Steve. He's reliable in terms of in that penalty box. He's a bit of a poacher. At least you can kind of rely on him to get on the end of chances and make a goal. He's not the quickest. He's not the strongest. He's not the most technically gifted, but he's kind of a workhorse. He's a warrior, and he'll put his body on the line and he'll get on the end of those chances. It's a bit like, not like Gary Lineker, but he's kind of like a, I'm trying to think of a sort of a poacher in the Premier League who he reminds me of a little bit. So, there's someone in my mind, but I can't quite come to me right now in the Premier League who kind of just gets on the end of chances and puts himself in that line, kind of like a slower, less mobile Chicharito maybe. But yeah, so he is important to the team, and also he's a spiritual leader. I think he's someone who gets the club and gives his all. That's my opinion on him. So I know what you mean. He can be someone you might not notice. He's not kind of a star striker, if that makes sense. He's not someone who's going to catch the headlines to many people outside of Sweden, for example. But in terms of the club itself, I think he does stand out a little bit.
Yeah,
all you've got to say about AIK's form at the moment is they've got 5 points from 12 against Degerfors, Mjällby, Helsingborg, and Sirius. That is mid-table form. I saw a tweet from someone called Andreas Vasenius at Vasenus who said, "Is this the worst team AIK has put on the field in 10 years?" And a lot of obviously fans, replied to that, and there was a big discussion about it. Again, there was another tweet from someone called Robin Avalen. He said that Kim Pioka and Zach Elbouzedi are amongst the worst, most sort of the most powder dry teams he's ever seen, basically, he said. So, fans are not happy about it. They do need a few reinforcements. They are coming, but then they've also got players like Bilal Hussein potentially going to Italy. So a lot to do for AIK this season. And I think, last season I was so praiseworthy of them for coming joint top or second in the end, but obviously on goal difference. They're still only 1 point off the title, so, we can't knock them too much. But I just think that they've lost that sort of defensive solidity they used to have, and they haven't improved that goal tally. They never really average 2 goals a game, do they? It's always like 1.5 or 1.4 goals.
0.93 XG in this match against Mjällby at home, which is, again, it's just not good enough.
Yeah, well, I mean, they've played 13, scored 18, so it's about 1.3 goals a game, 1.4. It's not good enough for a team who wants to win the title. It never has been, and they've always been about that, but they've relied on the defense. In certain games this season, defense has gotten them out of it because they haven't played amazingly well.
They're better as an underdog.
Their build-up play did improve a little bit. I remember the IFK game, for example, where they controlled the match. But all in all, they're not dynamic enough. They're not pacey enough, and I think that's where it's costing them the moment.
They had 5 straight clean sheets early in the season, but it seems a lot of those results were against better teams, and it feels like when they maybe are under pressure to break sides down, be the dominant force. I mean, I saw the goal. It should never have been conceded. There was a catalogue of defensive errors. They had numerous chances to clear the ball. Great persistence from the Mjällby striker, but that is not the sort of mistakes you expect from an experienced back line, is it? They need to go back to basics and get a clean sheet back on the board, I think, Jonathan. It's kind of their natural way. Very disappointing for AIK. Briefly, do you see them rebounding quickly?
They're only 1 point off it. So if Gudetti comes in and gets a bit of form, if they dip into the AIK will probably dip into the market and get 1 or 2 players. They're always a team who's active in the transfer market. So in short, I would say in summary, yes, I think they are still in it. But I think that Kim Pioka, Elbouzedi, Amar Ahmed front line is really poor for a team like AIK. And I think although it's temporary, I think there's an argument. I'm not going to say it myself. It's not my personal opinion, but I can see the argument that players of that level, what are they doing at AIK? Maybe they have a little bit more to prove, I think. If you've come from non-league, it's very rare you'd go from non-league to the top team in Allsvenskan, one of the top teams in Allsvenskan. So I think you have to prove yourself. And you can always go on your youth career and things like that. I know Kim Pioka was good at youth level and et cetera, but from what he showed in that game, he looked like a non-league player to me. Elbouzedi is a similar thing, playing for like Lincoln City, Bolton, it's a different level. Obviously, I want those sort of players to do well. You know, I study those leagues in quite a lot of detail. So any player from the lower leagues of England coming to Sweden is great for us, but they're not pulling their weight at the moment. And unfortunately, I think they tipped the balance against them with their performance against Mjällby. But really, I have to praise Mjällby as well. Can't finish this section without praising Mjällby because the way they defended, especially in the last 10 minutes, was just exceptional. And I think they've got a player in Silas, by the way. We talked about the age thing and people been criticizing him. He's become the butt of the jokes in Sweden a little bit. I've already said once, I think it's unfair. I think they've got a real player there. I think every game I've seen him, he looks top. His goal was a proper poacher's goal. He hassles defenders. He's lithe. He's people talk about his age and saying he's older than he is, but he's got this sort of like light physique. He's quick across the ground. It's not like he's an old man, if you know what I mean. So, okay, facially features, he doesn't necessarily look 18, but in terms of his body shape and the way he moves, he really is a handful for defenders. And I think if he carries on this form, he's got potentially a future to go to a bigger club in this league, definitely. And I would say also he's starting to outshine Mamadou Moro, who obviously was the main man out front for Mjällby. So fair play to them because what they're doing this season has been really impressive.
Yeah, it's like we totally forgot Mjällby for a minute there, didn't we? Well done to them. Fantastic result and performance. You know exactly what you are going to get from that side. Now, I think the frustration for a lot of these sides that have dropped points is the door was open from Friday night because Malmö lost to GIF Sundsvall. I mean, some incredible stats from this game, Jonathan. Malmö's XG was 4.12 in this game as opposed to 1.32 of GIF Sundsvall. I think they had nearly 40 attempts in this game. The goalkeeper of GIF Sundsvall made 17 saves. I've never seen anything like it. It was like an absolute barrage. And I mean, I was looking at some of the misses. Abu Bakari had a particularly bad game, didn't he, for Malmö? He missed a lot of bad chances there. Malmö even led in this game. So it was crazy. I know they cost a lot of punters on Friday night. There was a lot of people betting on Malmö just to win the game or whatever, to get even 2 goals. And they were getting, they really frustrated a lot of punters. But crazy game, almost a freak result, you could say, because if this is played 10 times, Malmö probably win it 9 times, don't they? So crazy game. What did you think of this one?
I think that Malmö have been poor this season. They're underperforming massively. There's rumors of dressing room unrest. I think on their day, they probably would have won the match. I think on the balance of it, they had a few good chances. The keeper was outstanding for GIF Sundsvall. But at the same time, it wasn't as if they had a huge amount of sort of high quality chances. Sometimes shots is, I think, a bit of a misleading stat because it's, you can shoot from anywhere. You can p-roll it in the middle of the goal and it counts as a shot on target. Doesn't necessarily mean it's a good shot. So sometimes you have to be a little bit careful, I think, when you just analyze shots. Obviously, XG is a much better metric from that point of view. But yeah, I mean, at the same time, they did dominate the game in that sense. Once they'd gone a goal down, 2 goals down, 2-1 down. Peña scored a brilliant goal. I think it was his first in Allsvenskan. And as Christensen was obviously back, there was a few players rested because obviously they have a Champions League duty tomorrow, essentially, if you're listening, or today, depending on when you're listening to it. So obviously Ola Toivonen was completely dropped to the demise of my fantasy team. A few others were kind of not in the team, but Christensen was back, which was a big thing. He only lasted 55 minutes though. Unfortunately, got an assist. Joe Inge Berget I thought wasn't amazing. Again, it's a case of like, we're going to talk about Häcken in a minute. The one thing that I think puts Häcken top and makes me not really rate Malmö and maybe even AIK on their day at times. I think both Malmö and AIK just lack pace. They're quite lumbering and sort of languid to watch. You look at, they don't have any you're not going to have fast counter attacks with Soren Reeks, who is 35 years old, Joe Inge Berget, who is 31 years old, and then obviously you've got Berman Savic up front, who's a bit younger, but he withdraws, he drops deeper often. You're not going to have fast breaks, and then you've got fullbacks, Jonas Knudsen, 29, and Erik Larsson, who's obviously, he can get up and down again, but he's 30, so they don't really have much sort of athleticism and physicality to sort of create those fast counter attacks. If you looked at the GIF Sundsvall against Malmö game and compare it to the GIF Sundsvall Djurgården game, Djurgården had raw pace down both flanks, fullbacks. They had a Sorrow, they had even Edvardsen, they had Radetinac is not necessarily quick, but they broke fast, and they had players in the midfield pinging balls quickly with speed into the channels and into the half spaces for sort of like counter attacks with gifts as well when they played a high line. Malmö don't really have that, and it's just not all clicking at the moment for Malmö. So you could argue, yes, they on balance, if you played this game 100 times, they probably win it, 90 times or whatever in terms of the flow of the match. But on the day, Andreas Andersson, who, don't forget, remember he was the man who saw one keeper off, obviously, after one game of the season when they had a bit of a fallout, didn't they? He was brilliant. So fair play to him. I think they've improved. I think Ronaldo Damus has done really well. It's not Cristiano. It's Damus. He's Haitian, and he's got 2 now in 2 games, and he's been quite good recently, actually. So he was impressive, and he got his goal, and obviously all in all,
he did well to get that goal.
Got the winner. So yeah, I think the thing is, we're going to talk about it in a minute, I think Milojevic is under a little bit of pressure. There was rumours after this game that maybe they might be starting to look for a new manager, Malmö. Not sure if they're verified, but I've said it for a few weeks now. All just doesn't seem quite right at the moment at that club.
Yeah, we are going to talk about the manager now. But before that, crucial result for GIF Sundsvall, who, that gets them up to 9 points now in the table for them. And it's been a miserable year in general, but they have won 3 games of football. The crowd were loving it. It wasn't a big crowd, was it, there? I was a bit disappointed. But I think didn't they have a history of beating Malmö? They beat them about 3 years ago, I think. It was like 3-1 or something, a shock win. So it's one of those places maybe Malmö don't like going. I sort of heard the goal anthem. Fast becoming one of my favourite goal anthems now. I do like a bit of GIF Sundsvall, Jonathan. But, I look at the XG stats. It feels like a very fluky win. Surely as a manager, you're going to feel a little bit hard done by there, aren't you? And I know he's come under some pressure here, but he can't control his players finishing, can you? The bad finishing and that. So is it one of those that you would put down as a freak result, or is it just adding to pressure?
Yeah, I think I've kind of answered that, didn't I? I think if you played it 9 times out of 90 times, I think they would win 90% of the time. But they caught a goalkeeper who was fantastic, and I think Gibson's on the day probably deserved it in terms of the balance of coming back from 1-0 down as well. Don't forget, they could easily have got their heads down and sulked and sacked it in, and they didn't. So I think, to be honest, the result is the result. I think that Malmö didn't do enough in both boxes to defend or attack. Whether or not they're unlucky is by the by. I think okay, they had some decent efforts, but like I say, I don't think they really. It wasn't. I didn't come out of it feeling like, they were slightly unlucky, but I didn't come out of it feeling like, this was a massive injustice type thing. Malmö are Malmö, and of course they expect to beat GIF Sundsvall, no matter how many chances they need. So I think they lack. There are certain areas they lack in that squad, and yeah, I think that's what it is.
Milojevic, then, there's been a lot of talk about him. He might potentially get the sack at some point. What are your thoughts on him at Malmö? Do you feel that they should be looking at replacing the manager? Should he be doing better than he has been doing?
Yeah, he should be doing better. I think, like I said, I think there's rumours that if I'm being honest, I think this ends badly. I'm gonna, if I put my neck on the line, I don't think this is gonna end well. I just unless they can be active in the transfer market quickly. They've bought a lad from Ligue 1, who you might know. From France anyway, that I don't know personally much about him. They are trying to strengthen actively. There's talks about, there's rumours about, I think Saidi from Degerfors, for example, and others. So if they can get the players they need, then maybe, and quickly, then maybe they can be all right. But now they've got Champions League games to add to it. They've had a lot of muscle injuries. They've had problems. Kiesa Tellin missed the game again. Or he's going to miss he's going to miss other games. He's missing I think he's going to miss the Champions League qualifier, according to reports. He's missed so many games already since he's come back. I just think that I'm a bit worried for Malmö this season. If I'm being honest, I don't think that the only thing you could say is that obviously with this, the title race is quite tight at the moment, and Malmö tend to be better in the second half of the season. they can obviously always strengthen. They've got money, and they can keep their players, and that's all sometimes a big difference. If you look at Hacken, who we'll move on to now, can they keep Jeremiev, who's the man who's basically firing them to the title at the moment? That's going to be a massive question. Whereas Malmö will always probably keep their players or have replacements, unless it's something unexpected. So there's the little differences that could decide things. They're not playing well, but they're not out of it yet. It's 4 points. They've played a game extra though. But there's just a little stench of something not quite right at Malmö this season. It just feels off in some way. And I feel like there's no smoke without fire in terms of the rumours. So it just feels to me like it's a little bit sour, and I'm struggling to see how Milojevic gets out of it, really. It just doesn't seem to be going his way. So I think he's got a lot to do to turn it around.
Mahame Sibi is the player that you are talking about there from Racing Club du Strasbourg. Nearly £1 million they've spent on him. Spent all of last season on loan at Paris FC, Jonathan, actually. So I saw plenty of him. Physical, big Malian who might potentially go well or might not. I'm not sure about him, actually. If he can really strengthen the midfield, then it might go well. So let's just have a look. What else we've got left here? Ricard Norling's another manager under pressure, apparently. He Norrköping are down in 11th place. Another shock loss, this, wasn't it? Losing at home 1-0 to Sirius. There were some strange results going around this weekend, I must say, Jonathan. Things have not gone as well there as expected.
Unless you listen to our season preview, because who predicted them 10th?
You did.
Media predicted them 6th. They finished last season 7th.
Yeah, not a surprise to you.
But they are 10th, and I'm not surprised. They're 11th, in fact, and it's not a surprise to me. And I predicted 10th. And I remember explaining it on the show, and I said that was the biggest, maybe that was the widest difference, I think, in terms of predictions from the media compared to what I thought. And a lot of people I think it raised eyebrows a little bit, that prediction, but it's going to form. Simple factor, Steve. The squad is not, they've sold too many of their best players. Just as simple as that. They have mitigating circumstances. There's been some really terrible tragedies behind the scenes in terms of the Kazani situation, of course, to deal with. So, human tragedy that there's obviously things behind the scenes that have been unfortunate. But really, I just think that the balance of the team isn't quite right. They've got some good players, and they've been unlucky with injuries as well. John Carlos de Britos, by the way, I think he did a cruciate. Daniel Eid, I think, has been injured a little bit here and there. He looked good. So they've had a few injuries, but I just think that losing Ali Benro was a massive problem. And Ricard Norling hasn't quite got the balance of his team right. He's actually been really unlucky as well. He's just got COVID, so things aren't when it rains it pours for him. But yeah, they're just not looking good. Sirius did a job on them, and yeah, I'm struggling to see really how they get out of it. Jonathan Levi, maybe Christopher Niemann are the two that they'd look to and say, to get us out of a hole. And they've just lost Abdul Razak to Anderlecht, their main midfielder, and he's a top player. So they're just losing too many players too regularly, Steve. Bergman Johannesson, Adik Benro, now obviously Abdul Razak. You could name so many other players. There's rumours about Dargistal. He's only just came back at the beginning of this season, and now there's rumours he might be leaving again. So it's quite hard to maintain momentum if you're just losing all your best players consistently. Obviously, they've made loads of money, which is great, but money can't run onto the field and play a football match for you. So,
is it all Ricard Norling's fault then? Or is it just simply the squad, the tools he's got to work with? It's astonishing me how few clean sheets they've had since he's took over at Norwich.
Yeah, I don't think he's implemented his squad well enough. His tactical style well enough. He wants to play the sort of 3-4-3/3-5-2 formation, or sometimes it's a 4-5. Well, sort of a 3-4-2-1. Losing Ali Benro as that focal point has been a real blow. Niemann's a decent striker, but I just think he lacks that kind of. I don't think he's a lone striker. I think he lacks the physicality to be that reliable lone striker, even though he will get you goals as a kind of a 9 as a poacher. I just if you look at it, they had so many people leaving the club in general. So many directors have left. There was obviously the crisis about the whole bullying scandal behind the scenes of like staff being mistreated. The chief scout Stig Torbjornsen's gone to AFK Göteborg. they've just lost loads of personnel in general over the last sort of 18 months, on and off the pitch, and I think it's caught up with them. And it's hard to sort of draw the line because you're not there day to day to say, well, Norling could be doing better. It's hard to say where does those problems kind of leak onto the field, if that makes sense. It's a bit like Ten Hag at Manchester United. I think no matter how good a coach you are, if the situation around you is kind of toxic, doesn't matter how good a coach you are, you're going to struggle because you're not going to get the players you might want. You're not going to, all the external pressures are going to weigh on you. So I'm not surprised that they're sort of low in mid-table, let's put it that way.
Okay, so the other three results we've not talked about. Häcken 1, Elfsborg 1. Some crazy XG stats in there as well. Häcken with 3.4 XG and only drew. Varberg beat Varnamo 3-0, which is a good win for them. And Anthony van den Hurt equalised late from the penalty spot for Helsingborg 1-1 draw against Kalmar. So I'm sure we'll talk about those teams next time in the podcast, unless you wanted to briefly mention any now. But there is...
we've got to give a shout out to Häcken, the top of the league.
It was a crazy... I watched this game. Only over 2.5 backers were fuming in this game, Jonathan, I'll tell you.
Yeah, I just want to very quickly, I think I'm just going to make 1 point. I don't really want to dwell on it too long because we're running well over. The difference between, you talk about the teams at the top. I think the thing that I saw this weekend that really stood out to me was the difference between the top teams and Häcken, the so-called top teams, and the team who is actually at the top, Häcken, is that main striker. I thought that if you put Jeremieff in that Djurgården team, they'd have won 3-0. I think if you put Jeremieff in that AIK team, they'd have probably come away with a point at least. If you put Jeremieff in that Hammarby team, I think they'd have probably got to get maybe something from it. I think if you put Jeremieff in his Malmö team of old, he used to play for Malmö, they probably would have got a point or a win. All those chances they created. And I think he's become a real clutch difference maker for them. The goal he scored against Elfsborg, just kind of out of nothing. Just a poacher's goal, found a tiny little split, millimetre of space in the box and poached it home. I thought it was a brilliantly taken striker's goal. And I really think he's been the difference maker so far. And I really felt that watching that game, I was like, that's what all those other teams don't have at this moment in time for varying reasons. So, yeah, I've just got to give a shout out to Jeremieff because I think he really is leading that charge for the title.
He's a great focal point striker, isn't he? It really is a top man up front for them this year, and a consistent goal scorer as well. So just a brief mention then. We've got, this also involves Norwegian here, but the Champions League qualification matches are starting up this week. We've got Malmö against Vikingur Reykjavik. Bodø Glimt are in action on Wednesday against Faroe Islands champions Klaksvik. And HJK Helsinki as well for those Finnish listeners. They are facing a side from Latvia. Now, it's a long route, isn't it, if you want to make the group stages? It has been done, as Malmö showed before. And a big priority, though. I mean, you don't want to get knocked out early on, do you?
Yeah, in terms of, we talked about Milos Milojevic, the new Malmö manager. If they get embarrassed in the Champions League, I think that will be curtains for him. Then I think the balance really will tip. This is a massive game for them. You can't underestimate it. Jon Dahl Tomasson proved, how important Champions League is for Malmö. And if he fails here in terms of getting, I'm not saying to get to the group stage, but he's got to go quite deep. Teams like Viking, or they can't take their eye off the ball against teams like that. But at the same time, they do have problems. They've got Kiese Tellin, I think, is missing. Again, he missed the Gustavsson game. He's got illness. I think Reeks is going to miss the game. I think he picked up an injury. Obviously, Christensen, as I said, he's not quite playing full 90s yet. Hedze Kadunic and Moisander have been ill. Toivonen, I think, also had maybe a little bit of illness as well as the maybe artificial pitch. Adi Nalic is obviously out long term. Oskar Levicki's out long term. So, they've got a lot of injuries. You'd expect them to win, but I think it's a game they've got to be careful, Steve. It's like a trap game. You don't gain much if you win, but if you lose, it's going to be a disaster.
I can hear the Admiral from Star Wars in my ear. It's a trap. Yeah, Bodø Glimt are facing Klaksvik on the Faroe Islands, a two-legged tie. I'd be really shocked if either the Icelandic or the Faroes team got close to these champions, but you just never know, do you? their whole season comes down to these games. Sometimes there's several sides from the Faroes and I think Finland involved in the Conference League qualification on Thursday, but no one as from Sweden or Norway. I don't think. I've looked. There's a lot of matches, but yeah, that's Europe. I'm sure we'll talk about Europe in future episodes. But yeah, that will do for the Swedish section then. Really interesting times in the Allsvenskan, as we've said, tight at the top. And at the bottom, some sides are starting to come together as well. So join us after the break, where we'll be focusing on the Eliteserien matters.
Welcome back to part 2 of the Nordic Football Podcast. We're moving to Norway now. And if you haven't followed us on Twitter, do it at Nordic Footpod. And if you haven't joined our Patreon, patreon.com/Nordic Football Podcast, have a think about it. Weekend previews every week. We're on about a 60% win rate this season from about 37, 38, I think 39 pretty good matches. Up and down this week. We haven't actually calculated the final slate yet, but I think we've got about 60% this week, or maybe just under. But yeah, let's move over to Norway, because been quite a few shocks in this round, as you mentioned at the top of the show, Steve. Where are we at the moment? Because if we just kind of look at the table, we've got top of the league Lillestrøm still 13 games played, 30 points. Molde have a game in hand, 12 games played, 26 points. Viking third, they've played 14 games and got 22 points. So obviously, maybe tailing away a little bit. And then you've got Strømsgodset fourth and Sarpsborg fifth. It seems incredible to me. Bodø Glimt sixth, and then Arlesund seventh, and Rosenborg eighth. I mean, as tables go, Steve, that is all over the place, isn't it?
Yeah, and there's a lot of different amounts of games played. I think we've kind of got to wait for things to settle out. Everyone played the same number of games, see where we are there. But yeah, it's been a strange table all year, hasn't it? We've talked about this, and results at the weekend, there was certainly some baffling ones, not just results, but also performances. And it's been a bit of a strange season for that.
Yeah, it really has. And I'm actually going to throw a question straight at you, because we did put out a call for questions, and we didn't have too many this week, but we did have one from Josh Butler, who's just joined us about an hour ago on the Twitter. And he says, are VIF genuinely in a relegation battle now, or do they still have enough quality across the pitch to drag themselves free before they get embroiled? So let's maybe start there. Vålerenga, third bottom, 14th, 11 points from 12 games, 1 point above the relegation zone outright. Going a bit mad there. I mean, what do you think of Josh's question? And, we've got an answer for that, Steve.
Yeah, I've got them on the itinerary as a point of order, a bit down. Well, we might as well start with them now, then. The Vålerenga crisis. Josh Butler was that? The cricketer.
Not Jono.
Josh Butler, sorry. I was looking now. I thought when you said Josh Butler, I'm like, wow. No, but...
Josh is Butler 90.
Yes.
Shout out to you. Thank you for the question.
Thank you very much, Josh, indeed. Yes, it's... Are they genuinely in trouble? Look, this is really difficult times for Vålerenga. They're winless in 7 league games. The manager is under huge pressure. I'm surprised that he's kept his job for now. I've said before in a recent episode that it feels like a good time probably to remove Dargale Fergermo from his duties. Not because he's a bad manager or anything like that. He's a good manager, experienced, but I'm not sure he's the right man at Vålerenga right now. It feels like they just need a change of manager, someone probably a bit more modern, with a bit more modern approach, and who can get the belief back. But in terms of expected points, expected goals, and things like that, they're miles behind where they should be. So he would argue, again, I can't put the ball in the back of a net for my players. But they've got problems off the field as well. They've just sold their goalkeeper Kjetil Haug to Toulouse. They have today replaced him with Braithwaite, who ex-Haugesund keeper was on loan at Nîmes this year in France. An inconsistent performer. He'll do a job for them, but I'm not sure about Braithwaite. I think he has his peaks and troughs. Aaron Don's gone back to Belgium from his loan spell. Obviously, they've been without Christian Borkovic all season, right back. He's probably not going to play a single minute this year. There seems to be even Ivan Nasberg is going to be leaving the club in at the start of August. I think it's some Cypriot club. I'm not sure exactly, but he's going to be leaving. So they need to get reinforcements, and they're aware of this, and I expect them to be very, very busy in the transfer window coming up this summer. So it's very difficult times for Vålerenga. They've actually had a week or so off now, but their next fixture is against Kristiansand, rock bottom Kristiansand at home. It's been labelled a must-win game. And if they don't get the 3 points, then Fagermo might be on his bike. But several pundits now have called for his head. They think he needs to go. I think he probably needs to go as well. And a bit like how you said with the Malmo situation earlier, I think this could end in quite an ugly way.
Yeah, they didn't actually. Oh, I'm missing something. They didn't actually have a game this weekend.
No, they didn't have one, no, because their fixture was played about 6 weeks ago. Because I don't know why.
Fair enough. A weekend off for them to sort of, sit on the naughty chair and think about the mistakes you've made, I guess. And yeah, hopefully that answers your question, Josh. Thanks so much for following us. Really appreciate it and sending in a question.
Well, I need to actually answer the question. Are they in relegation trouble? I don't think they'll go down. No, right. I think they've got too much to go down. They're too good to go down. I know that's said a lot in football, but they are genuinely too good to go down.
Genuinely too good to go down. Now, where have I heard that before? Many times before. But yeah, you're right. But then again, if you end up in the playoffs, who knows? It could be playing Brann or someone like that. Maybe I know Brann have gone on some incredible winning streak, haven't they? I think in the Obos. But yeah, you never know. But yeah, no, thanks so much to Josh for your question, and anyone else who wants to ask questions, please do at Twitter at Nordic Football. We do actually have one other question, which I'll come to later because I know you want to go back to the regular scheduled programming of the discussion. So let's go back to that, and we'll drop in a question from SS Phenom at Trevor85 a bit later. But yeah, for now, HamKam Molde is your top billing. Steve, you were disappointed by this because I know it was one of our weekend preview tips. Unsuccessful on this occasion, but you do have a bit of a debrief on this game, and I'm interested to get your perspectives on newly promoted HamKam versus title challengers Molde 0-0.
Yes, I mentioned this game on our Patreon preview show. I also did a video of this on Twitter. It was a strong pick for Mike on Sunday. I strongly fancied goals in this game, over 2.5 goals. And usually, whenever I lose a pick, I'm desperately unlucky, Jonathan, and things like that. But this was one of those where I flat out deserved to lose this election. I completely called the game wrong. Ended 0-0, and it pretty much deserved to end 0-0. It's difficult. Molde really, I think, were not at the races. They turned up, and I think they felt they were going to get an easy 3 points against a newly promoted club, because they didn't even do the basics of football right in this game. Like, passes were not going to their man properly. I'm talking basic stuff here. You can tell when a team's off. I think 3 or 4 minutes into the game, there was a defensive mix-up at the back from them between the goalkeeper, and they were very lucky not to concede a goal. A lob went over the goalkeeper and just went over the crossbar. And you could tell early on right from that stage, it was going to be one of them days that maybe they were going to labour to a bad performance, and they'd find a way to win the game 1-0, 2-0, a bit of moment of quality, a moment of class. But there was very few moments of that in the whole match. Their XG for this match was 1.58, but half of that was effectively on one chance. And it was a one-on-one in the second half that Groden missed. The goalkeeper made a good save, but I don't care what goalkeeper it is. He had to score this chance. It was a bit of class because Datro Fofana had a great flick on to him, but there wasn't enough of that from Molde. And I was very disappointed with their performance. You've got to give credit to HamKam. They had a good setup, and they certainly restricted the Molde, which I'll talk about in a minute. But it was one of them days. It was the first real time this season that I was worried for Molde in terms of their performance, because they just didn't look that bothered. They lacked energy, and they did not play well.
Tell us a little bit about HamKam's sort of 3-4-3 system, Steve, because our good friend Tom Dent is there as assistant manager. Of course, it's his first season in the job, and you seem to have a bit of a liking for them, because if anyone who's listening is a subscriber on Patreon, every single week pretty much Steve has a HamCam tip. So I know that you're someone who follows HamCam very closely. I don't know if it's because of the name, being Meatman Soccer, of course, and a bit of HamCam. But for some reason, you definitely have a fondness for them, I'd say. Just tell us about their shape and what are they doing this season? What's Tom Dent got them doing? What are they doing to get these results?
You're right. I've had a lot of selections on them this season, either in goals or in terms of winning games or handicaps or whatever. And this is the first time I've really got them wrong, because I watched the Sarpsborg game the previous week, and Sarpsborg, although they beat Sarpsborg 3-2, the first sort of 20-30 minutes of that match, Sarpsborg were all over them and dominated the first half hour. And I expected Molde to do the same, like with a high pressing system, just get in their face and kind of grind them down, because HamCam defensively, I think you can get at them really if you apply enough pressure. But this 3-4-3 was more like 5-4-1 against Molde. They sat pretty deep at times, but also did push up on occasion or when it felt right. And the aim was to restrict, I think, the Molde wingbacks, Linners and Haugen. I noticed they hardly had a touch inside the penalty area. Martin Linners had one touch in the penalty area, which is very low for him. These wingbacks for Molde have been getting forward and doing a lot of things this year, but HamCam restricted the supply line to them, and most of the XG that Molde created was through the middle. And I think it was like HamCam said, okay, you can have the middle of the park, or you can try to have the middle of the park, but we're not letting you do anything out wide against us in this game. And it is hard sometimes. It can be hard to break down a 5-man defense, can't it? But it's not like it's an intricate special system. A lot of teams do it. Molde should be used to it. But yeah, HamCam generally do set up 3-4-3, counter-attacking physical side, who I think are dangerous in transition. And at times they could have won this game, actually. In fact, I don't think HamCam played at their best. They'll probably look back on this match and think, you know what, we could have got the 3 points there if we were a little bit braver, because they were not on their A game either. They didn't really have to break sweat for this draw that much. It didn't feel like they were hanging on or anything. There was a couple of late chances for Molde, but you never felt really that HamCam were under that much pressure, apart from this massive one-on-one chance. But yeah, tactically, I know what they were trying to do. Jakob Mikkelsen definitely set it up here to limit the damage that Molde do on the wings.
And my final question on that, HamCam, well, I've got 2 questions actually. I'll keep them very brief. Number 1, do you think, in a sentence or a few words, do you think HamCam will survive? And number 2, do you think you'll have David Dutchworth-Fofana in your 10 to watch again next season, for maybe a 3rd year running?
I've got him in my fantasy team now. I'm captaining this week. He's got a double game week against HamCam and Yerv. He should be filling his boots. And he had one chance in the first half, which went down as like a 0.4 XG, which I disagreed with. I didn't actually think it was even a big chance at all. It was a difficult one. But they kind of snuffed him out of the game here, HamCam, with their physicality. He just couldn't get into the game. Molde couldn't get him involved as much as they would have wanted him to. And he had to drop deeper to actually make more of an impact. He's frustrating me, because just when I was praising him, he had a game where he was basically ineffectual. So I can't work this player out, because one week, which when I think he's back, he throws in a stinker of a performance. So, although the whole team did, in fairness. In terms of HamCam, I think they'll be absolutely fine. I think they'll finish between 8th, 10th, something like that. They, in some ways, they are difficult to work out, but in other respects, they've only lost 2 games of football. This match showed that they're willing to dig in and grind out a result. I wouldn't say they parked the bus, but they had a good tactical setup. I think if Molde had scored a goal, it would have been different, because then they would have been forced to open up, and HamCam are very vulnerable themselves if they're going forward and bombing forward, because they can be exposed at the back, out wide. And that would have been a big problem for them. But they never had to do that, because they were never behind in the game. So, yeah, I think it's fair play to them. It was a good result, a good draw. They might feel like they've got some regrets that they could have won the game on another day. Molde have got to do better. Simple as that. I was very disappointed in them, and they've got to pick themselves up.
Let's move on, and shout out to Tom Dentley for listening. Tom, let's hear from you, because I haven't heard much from you this season. Give us a tweet if you did hear this show. I'm keen to say hello to you. Bodø Glimt, you want to talk about them? Shock defeat, and I think that was another one of your predictions this week. So we're not having the best of times this week on our weekend preview show, but I know we got a few right, so we will recap that on our show later this week on Patreon. But a defeat for Bodø Glimt. And before I ask you the question from our listener, let's just get your general take on it.
Yeah, this is one of those where if I lose a game, this is how I usually lose a pick, Jonathan. They should never have lost. They were the better team on the day, I felt. They were a bit too soft defensively, but at 0-0, they had chances to go ahead and they didn't take it. Even at the end, they equalised in the 96th minute and then conceded a late penalty, a shocking referee decision. I have to say it was a really poor week for referees in Norway. There were some shambolic calls. Several out there were calling for VAR, and even I can't defend not having VAR sometimes with these. I mean, these are appalling calls. Even VAR would have overturned it. It was that clear and obvious. This was a clear dive in pretty much the last kick of the game that condemned Bodø Glimt to a 3-2 defeat against Odd, who Odd actually played a good game, in fairness to them. They took their chances well, but I think Bodø Glimt will look back on this and think, you know what, we keep giving away sloppy goals. We keep missing too many chances. And, I was thinking they were back on track, but this is the sort of result I'm like, they're not going to retain their title if you lose matches like this. And it might be a case of just trying to get back into the top three now, because again, it's not really good enough, but they'll know why they've lost this one.
They will indeed. And let's move on to the question, because I'm not entirely sure what the last question was from SS Phenom at Trevite85, because he does say, guys, if you want to answer my question from last week, that would be great. I don't know if you scrolled back to find out what the question was, Steve, but did ask him to clarify it, but I don't know if he's missed that tweet. But let's pick on the second question that he does have. He said, another question I had was, what do you think is the main reason behind Bodø's struggles? I know they've lost a lot of key players, but they still have a good squad and maybe should be doing better. And to be fair to him, we have had this question a few times, haven't we, Stephen? It's something that a lot of listeners want to know about. So Glimt just seem to be sort of slipping this year, and it's uncharacteristic for them, really, isn't it, Steve? I mean, 6th in the table, 11 points behind Lillestrøm. It's not really what we'd expect from Glimt.
Yeah, I'm just looking back into SS Phenom. He's got a question about Sarpsborg, which I'm going to talk about them soon, so I'll answer that after this. I've given a few theories before about what went wrong from this season, and I kind of used the European distraction as an excuse, legitimate excuse, in the build-up of games and turnaround of players. But even I'm struggling to think of excuses for this sort of result against Odd away from home. You've got to be professional. This is the sort of match that Bodø Glimt would not have slipped up in a couple of years ago. They actually lost to Odd last year 1-0. It was a completely different type of performance, though. I think they're missing a clinical striker. Erik Botheim. We often said if you put me or you into that Bodø Glimt side up front, we would score goals, Jonathan. But I think now we are starting to see the difference between the likes of Botheim and perhaps like your Esbjords and your Bonifaces, because Pellegrino is the main goal man. And I think they're over-relying on him. Not enough output is being done from the other striker now. Esbjord, like I say, needs to do more. Boniface needs to do more. And, Solbakken, I'm not sure his head is quite there right now. More on him in a minute. But, they're not scoring as many goals, Phenom. I think that's the main issue. That before they could outscore anyone and, get 4 or 5 in a game, that isn't the case anymore. Their defence statistically is one of the best in the league. I think the lowest team in terms of XGA before this round anyway. But they're not scoring enough goals.
Not enough goals then. Simple as that. And they're scoring 2 per game, Steve. 24 goals.
Compared to where they were, though, it was at astronomical levels. That's the thing. That's the difference. Like there were stats off the charts that is a difference. They're still scoring.
Playing devil's advocate, Godset have scored 20 and they're fourth. I know it's only 1 point, but is Molde scored less and they're second?
Well, defensively, for me, this was their worst defensive performance of the season, right? But before that match, they have been unlucky, I think. They've made a few mistakes, unusual mistakes, or conceded low XG goal. The goalkeeper, I've talked about him before. He had a poor game. The first goal, for me, it's on him. And even the second goal, you could say his positioning's out of shape. I think he's not had such a good season. He had a good couple of recent games when they beat Arsenal and Christensen to 0. But it was kind of the old Gremlins reared their ugly head again against Odd. So, yeah, his level's not been as strong. So, yeah, it's not just the offense, but the offense could get them out of trouble before.
Yeah, I mean, I'm playing devil's advocate there. Like you say, they've been so good attacking wise, and that's why so many fans and listeners want to sort of know about them because it's kind of tailed off a bit, but still averaging 2 goals a game, and I guess the balance isn't right, as well as the fact that they're just not tearing teams apart like they used to. I don't know what it was. Jose Mourinho maybe put a spanner in their works somehow, but yeah, let's move on. And thank you for the question as well, and keep them coming as well. I think you mentioned about Sarpsborg there. Let's. There's a little piece of transfer news.
Well, it was meant to be a secret, but Ola Solbakken apparently went on a private jet to Italy to talk about the potential transfer to Roma. Now, I think Napoli are also linked with the Bodø Glimt wide man here, but it looks very much he will be on his way in the summer transfer window. I think basically he attracted way too much attention from their Europa Conference League run. And I think Roma themselves were very impressed with him. So it would make sense that they would be interested in his services. In terms of the player, obviously, you want to go, you're not going to turn down a move to Serie A, are you? Even if it does mean playing for Jose Mourinho. But yeah, I think Bodø Glimt are going to have to prepare for yet another sale of one of their strong assets. I'm sure he'll fetch quite a lot of money, but again, it's not ideal, is it? Again, it's more transition needed, more reinforcements needed for them, and eventually I think they're kind of paying for this success.
Boo! Seems like Roma are just trying to suck the life out of Glimt in every single way possible. I mean, emotionally, spiritually, physically, and now, financially.
Probably, he wouldn't be surprised. That's the sort of thing Jose Mourinho does. But ultimately, I think
leaving Mourinho one side, but they're definitely. It looks like they've spotted a player that they like from that game, and it's going to be another blow to Glimt sort of morale, isn't it? But yeah, let's see where that goes. One to watch, I guess. And let's move on to the Viking Rosenborg game. Your only words on this game so far was the word bloodbath. Let's hear a bit more.
It's a good game, this, actually. I enjoyed it. It was a good 1-1 draw. 2 traditional sides, big rivals, and they went at it. There was some really good physical play here, good tackles sliding in. A nice goal from Stefano Vecchia opened the scoring for Rosenborg, who have got a lot of resilience about them away from home. This year, they don't lose many games of football for Rosenborg, and I think they will. This is what I kind of expected of them. I knew they would kind of grind out some of these results if needed at times. They're happy to sort of play ugly if needed, and almost the dark side of football. But I enjoyed this game. It was a good one. Viking are a bit off form. They're struggling without Berisha and Trippic, but Trippic came back after injury. He was on the bench, and then late on in stoppage time, he put a terrible tackle in on Jensen, I think it was, the Rosenborg midfielder. Deserved a straight red card. It was one of the. I enjoyed the tackle, I must say. It was a proper old school tackle. It just sived him down, clear red, and then like Marcus Henriksen and a couple of the Rosenborg players just went in there and pushed him over. Henriksen was the guy who, unfortunately, the referee saw do it, and he got a red card as well. Now, red cards are not very common in Norwegian football. Full stop. You just don't get many red cards in this league. You have to. I mean, there was a few around though recently. I mean, the Sarpsborg keeper had a red card as well, but this was like proper fisticuffs. There was a real commotion after this tackle. After the game, the manager Kjetil Rekdal said he hopes that Trippic is basically locked up and suspended for a long time after such a horrifying tackle. And Rosenborg are going to appeal the Marcus Henriksen red card, which I suspect he'll get banned for just one game rather than 3. But it was a bit of a bloodbath towards the end, a 1-1 draw, which probably both will take. But I certainly enjoyed it, Jonathan. I must say.
Yeah, and it doesn't do too much for Rosenborg's league position, does it? As it was mentioned at the top of this section, languishing in mid-table.
It doesn't really do a lot for Rosenborg, but like I said, they only lost 2 games of football. They have only played 12 matches, and they don't have any European football to worry about. And there's some sides above them who will have to contend with that. And I would be really surprised if someone like, say, Stroms Godset finished above Rosenborg this season. They're not going to finish below Arlesund. No way is that going to happen. So that's immediately 2 teams they're going to automatically finish above. And then they might be able to pick off a side like Viking, maybe Sarpsborg as well. And then, they're challenging in the top 3 again. So I don't think it's all that bad for Rosenborg. I've been quite high on them all season, haven't I, Jonathan? I'm going to stay positive about Rosenborg this year. I still think they're a bit of a sleeper, if they can add in the transfer window.
Yeah, to be fair to you, you have been very positive about Rosenborg all year long. And I remember in the past you've sort of been slamming them for being 2nd or 3rd. So maybe you're seeing some positive signs there, which is fair enough. You're sticking to your guns, and you got to respect that. Also, as a side note, good to see Stefano Vecchio on the score sheet again. A very nice goal, by the way, as well. Looks like he's taken his rediscovering this form at Sirius and taking it to the Norwegian league. So fair play. He's starting to look a bit of a shrewd signing. A few more points before we wrap up the show. We talked about obviously the crisis at Vålerenga. But we're going to sort of wrap it with Sarpsborg. The team you've enjoyed watching, haven't they? You've regularly beat the drum for Sarpsborg in the last sort of 3-4 weeks. And you want to give them a bit of praise again. They're 5th in the table. Ex-Hammarby manager Stefan Billborn seems to be leading the charge there. Always a manager who puts his team's attack first, isn't it? And looks like they're scoring a lot of goals again in Norway.
I'm going to the question that SS Phenom gave us June 23rd. Do you think if Sarpsborg were to bring in a few better players to bolster their defence, they could potentially challenge for a top 3 spot? They arguably have one of the best attacks in the league with Linseth, Maigard, Salatros, Heinz and Mullins. If so, who would you get? I'm not sure they would challenge if they brought in some better defensive players. They do have decent defensive players, as previous managers' systems have shown. It's just at the moment they are this Billborn system. The best comparison I can give it, Jonathan, is kind of watching Kevin Keegan's Newcastle United in the 90s. He has no thought to defence at all. Like they went down to 10 men against Sandefjord at the weekend. They won this match 4-3. The goalkeeper got sent off, and in the second half it's 2-2. And most teams would kind of time waste, just try and get a draw out of the game, right? They're still pushing players forward a lot of the time. And they went 3-2 up from a penalty. And even then, he's looking for a 4th goal. They're not looking to hold on or anything. He's been great for the neutral all year, but this went to a different level on Sunday. It really did. I've never seen, I've seen stuff like it before, but it was rather crazy just comparing where Sarpsborg were under like Mikael Stara, for example, or even Lars Behinen. Like there's just it's a mental game of football they're playing at the moment. They're such a high press team. I think they're the highest pressing team in the league. They're taking so many risks at the back if needed, and it's cost them at times. But they are fantastic to watch. They're creating so many chances. They're the highest scoring team in the league, and I love it. I really do. It's fantastic entertainment, and it reminds me of that Hammarby team, who we very nearly did win the league with. And do you know what? It's interesting, that question. I think if you actually added a couple of even better offensive players who were like even more clinical, then maybe they could challenge, because he's not going to even think about defense, this manager.
Funnily enough, I thought you were about to say, do you know what? I'd love it if they won the title. Love it. Because it does sound like a Kevin Keegan team. 4-3, keepers getting sent off. You're right. That Billborn team at Hammarby, I remember one time they put 7 past one team. It's literally all out attack. Defensive balance is a little bit. Maybe they should rename him Kevin Billborn, or Stefan Keegan, because there's definitely shades of the Geordie Warrior, isn't he? There, So no, fair enough. My guard 2 goals: Tveta, Vega, Seletros, Martinson, Ngawali, and off Keir in that match. So absolute goal fest, as you said. Fair play to Sarpsborg, and obviously they're in fifth. We're going to wrap the show up with one final question, which has just come on live on air. We're getting a few of these days. I like the live on air questions. And it's Heskebo. Our man Heskebo at Heskebo_ESN. Legendary fantasy player. It's a brief question, so, well, actually, he does ask why as well. But he says, Bodø Glimt are currently 11 points behind Lillestrøm with a game in hand. Which of these two teams do you think finishes higher in the table, and why? And it's a good one to wrap up on, because obviously we haven't really talked about Lillestrøm this week, but they are obviously top of the table and leading the charge. Lillestrøm and Hacken, who would have thought it? But yes, what are your thoughts on Heskebo's question? In a word, who finishes higher?
Lillestrøm. Yeah,
and
good
why?
question. I've got to do one more question after this. By the way, it's from someone on YouTube, a YouTube specific question, which I've forgot until now. But yeah, if to be honest, until this round where Odd beat Bodø Glimt, I would have said Bodø Glimt, because I think Lillestrøm will fold. But that's a lot of points to make up. I think Bodø Glimt, I've got a feeling they're going to qualify for one of the group stages of the European competitions, even if it's Conference League. So that will take plenty out of their system. And Lillestrøm have just got something about them this year. There's something going for them. They could definitely be a medal team, I think, if they can get through this sort of run now where they might not be playing as well. But yeah, I think it will be close. Bodø Glimt, I think, will really challenge for the medals as well. But gun to my head right now, I'm going to say Lillestrøm to finish above them, just.
And you just said basing that on European football, is that?
I think it would be a factor, yeah. To consider. Lillestrøm also in Europe, though, but I just don't really expect them to go that deep. So, say if Bodø Glimt qualify for one of the group stages, that takes out, six matches in the autumn. And it's a really mental period before the World Cup, Jonathan. And I think it would hinder them. If they don't qualify for a group, then it will help them out domestically. So it's hard to say into it. You've got to kind of predict how Europe qualifiers are going to go.
Fair enough, and thanks so much, Heskebo. Great to hear from you. Good little last minute question. And then you said there's one from YouTube. Yes. Don't forget our YouTube channel, by the way. We're nearly on 400 subscribers, which is great. If you do like your podcast on YouTube, you can always grab them there. So take it away.
Yeah, this is from someone called Helix Taiga, who is a regular listener or watcher on our YouTube channel. Who he doesn't have Twitter. So he actually asked, can we ask a question if you don't have Twitter? Anyway, his question was a month ago, actually. This is how long I've took to answer this. So sorry, Helix. Thanks very much for your support. Tromsø have previously quoted Manchester City as inspiration for their future philosophy of possession-based passive football. With Gaute Helstrup in talks for a contract extension, how does this pleasing to the eye football to have a home in Norway? Well, absolutely. I think it does have a home in Norway. Tromsø have done pretty well under Helstrup since the promotion. They do draw a lot of games. They've got a high possession system and a low pressing system, and they'll counter-attack as well. But in general, yeah, this possession-based system is becoming more widespread across Europe and the world, isn't it? And Tromsø, I think, also looked at their near neighbours, Bodø Glimt, to try and create their own sort of definitive style. It certainly does have a home. And, some people criticize the plastic pitches, but I think it helps Tromsø with this sort of football on that sort of surface, because I don't think they'll be able to implement this as well on grass, which is not well kept. So, yes, thanks for that question. It's Tromsø, not a team we tend to talk about much this season, I must say. I need to really go in depth on them maybe in a future episode. But, yeah, briefly, I think certainly it's good to see, and it certainly does have a home in Norway.
Yeah, great to see that question from someone who's not on Twitter, actually. Did you say Helix Tiger?
Helix Tiger, yes.
Thanks a lot for your question there. And one other, I'm going to actually read out a comment from the most recent YouTube episode, which I have now. You might have just heard the theme tune kick in because I'm on the comment section. Yes, from our last episode, ex-Mildax. You got a little bit of a dig there, Steve, because you got your Pragues mixed up, by the way. Don't know if you saw that. Slavia and Sparta, but I just want to read one little final bit from him. because it is nice to hear from comments from people on YouTube, isn't it? Because we don't sometimes dip into those comments as much as Twitter. He says, X-Milax says, about Wilhelmsen, I kind of share Jonathan's sentiment. This was a discussion about Oscar Wilhelmsen potentially going to Prague. I was surprised that out of all the players in Allsvenskan, Slavia is going for him. I'm obviously glad that Slavia is targeting Allsvenskan players, but I'm scared that given the price tag, people are expecting too much of him. Just yesterday, our former and currently best Czech striker Jan Kušta signed for Sparta, our biggest rivals. Slavia fans are obviously pissed off, but surprisingly, a lot of them are still like, well, we're going to sign that Swedish kid who we've never seen play, and we'll be fine. And I'm afraid people will turn on him if he doesn't deliver immediately. But when Iham Usu came last year from Häcken, nobody expected him to be part of the team straight away. He got a chance because of our injuries to centre-backs, and he ended up being our best centre-back over the season. If there wasn't for the injuries, he probably would have been out on loan with some average Czech clubs. So I hope Wilhelmsen has the same fate if he comes to Slavia. Smiley face. So yeah, no, I just wanted to read that. I know it's not Norway related, but it's nice to get comments and insights from people in different countries, obviously, who listen to the show. So yeah, really good insight there. And if you do hear this on your next listen, drop us another comment, because it will be good to sort of get you.
Mildax. Yeah, I feel guilty here. I forgot to reply to this. I saw it. I saw the comment. Probably liked it, I think, and then I forgot to reply to it. So I do apologise, Mildax, for this. But I mean, Prague. I mean, I got Prague right, didn't I? That's good enough, isn't it?
You couldn't have got that.
Surely
that's Czech Republic.
Surely that's good enough, right? Oh, I mean,
no, don't start. Don't get him even more angry.
No, Slavia and Sparta. I do apologise for getting.
You've already been accused of a lack of respect in the comment section there by someone else. But that'll be
okay. No, I do apologise for mixing those two up, I must say. But
yeah,
and thanks very much. A great comment.
And it's nice to see people on YouTube sort of also enjoying the show. So thanks a lot for that. And hopefully, if you enjoy your podcast on YouTube, then it's another sort of outlet for you. You don't have to necessarily be on the interesting world of Twitter. So that will be all now. Steve, I know we've got the games coming up in the European matches. You did ask me about Malmö, so I don't want much analysis, but could you just give me maybe your predictions for the following games, which I'll read out now. We have obviously Malmö Viking. I'm going to say a narrow home win in that one.
Narrow?
Yeah, I don't think it'll be a massive win, but I think they'll win it.
Like 1 goal win?
Yeah, maybe 1 goal. 3-1 tops, maybe. Glimt Klaksvik. What are you going for?
5-0 to Bodø Glimt in the first leg.
We've got HJK, but we're not going to talk about that too much as well. Viking, we won't ask about that. And then on the Thursday, Steve, 7th of July, Bruno's Magpies. I still can't get over them.
I don't think. Is there any Swedish or Norwegian teams in the conference? There's not, is there? There's a few.
Might not be.
Finnish.
It might not be. Yeah, there's no Danish.
Not this round.
There's no Danish, is there?
Yeah, they come in at a later round, I think. Viking Reykjavik, by the way, second place in the Icelandic Premier League right now. So, I mean, that league is not a great one, is it? Malmö, surely, will have.
They're not in great form. Maybe 2 goals, but yeah, that'll be.
I'm getting you talking now. I'm getting you more positive now on Malmö's chances. It's the route to the group stages, Jonathan. This.
Well, it's a big game for them, definitely. But I don't have nothing. They're not convincing me at the moment. But anyway, that'll be all now. Definitely, we have overstayed our welcome. The bumper show as usual. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Nordic Foot Pod if you enjoy it, and on YouTube as well. Like I say, subscribe. And our weekend preview show will be back later this week when we'll look at the weekend's games with a few tips maybe as well for you. And that will be on patreon.com/Nordic Football Podcast if you enjoy that kind of thing. So thanks so much, Steve. You've been very informative today. Maybe next week again, try David Dacho Fofana for your, we'll see what you think of him next week. Your opinion changes every week. But yeah, that'll be all from me, Jonathan Faduba and Steve Wiss. Thank you very much for your time, my friend. See you again soon.
Pleasure as always, Jonathan. Thank you all for your support. I'll see you again very soon. Take care and goodbye.